Okay, let's get this thing rolling, shall we? So, today, guys, we are going to be getting into a little bit of mindset stuff. We're going to be talking through a conversation that I had with an athlete this past week. And basically, the idea of the conversation is to just keep fucking digging. And before we get into the show, simple reminder as always, the goal of this show is to help athletes level up in every area of their lives, help them reach their true potential, and help them build their dream careers in sport. So we talk about a lot of different things. We go into mindset work, we talk about approaches to training, we talk about little things that you need to be doing in order to best succeed in the sport that you've chosen. Now, let's get going into the show, and we are going to start in 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the number one show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I'm your host, Kenny Dusseault, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about a conversation that I had with one of my athletes last week. And we're going to be talking a little bit about a meme, or I guess not even meme. It's not funny more as it is, motivational and helpful in terms of this kind of journey. And then I'm going to be digging into a little bit of my own journey and a couple of lessons that might be able to help you as well. So it's going to be a good one. If you struggle at all with your mindset, this is going to be a great episode for you. So first off, the meme or the picture that we're going to be talking about. So I'm going to try my best to describe it, but I hope some of you, as you tune in, understand which picture I'm talking about here. But I've seen a picture circulate a lot where, there's a miner digging into the ground and he's like drilling in, digging in, whatever it is, and he's looking for gold. And then you see that he's gone, way, way, way below the earth. And then he decides to give up. And then you can see in the picture that the gold is like 2 inches away. And so I had that conversation with one of my athletes this week because this guy in particular, Mac Larson, if you don't know who he is, go check him out online, watch his next fight. It's always entertaining, always super fun. Now, I had that conversation with him because we were talking about how we've been working together for over 5 years, and he's had over 35 fights now, both as an amateur and as a professional. And within a couple of fights now, he's going to be fighting for a Canadian championship, which is a super cool thing. But then within 1 or 2 fights after that, he's knocking on the door of the UFC. And the big thing with Mac and the big thing with so many athletes as they come up is in the beginning, he wasn't as dialed in as he is now. He would train really hard. He's always trained really hard. He's always just loved the sport, loved training, all of these things. But then on the weekends, he'd go out, have some fun, do a little bit of extracurricular activities, if that's what you want to call it. And, there's nothing wrong with that to a degree, but it took years for him to truly develop into the professional that I know and love today. And so this is where this conversation came up. I was like, man, the cool thing about watching his journey has been that no matter how far he goes, he doesn't stop digging. He doesn't stop moving forward. He doesn't stop moving forward towards that gold that's just 2 inches away. And I said, and the cool thing about it is we've been working together for 5 years now. And like now you're 2 inches away. Like all the work that you've done up to now, and then the work that you have left before you reach that level you've wanted to reach literally since the day we met each other in 2018, this fucking far away. So it's like now, even day to day, you feel like you're not making that much progress, or you feel like, you had a bad session or whatever it might be. It's like, don't fucking stop because it's this far away. Like that's just you digging that 1 extra inch, you drilling that 1 extra inch. But every day that you keep drilling and keep digging and keep pushing forward is every day that you make it closer to that ultimate goal. But every day that you say, I'm just gonna chill today. Oh, it's my birthday. It's the weekend. It's this, it's that. That's a day where you let the fucking dirt take a step forward again. And then you've got that much further to keep digging before you actually hit that jackpot or hit that gold. And it was a really cool conversation because it just really got me reflecting. Like we met when I was a year into my time in Calgary, and we met when Mac was still an amateur. was fighting Muay Thai. He hadn't fought MMA in a couple of years. And, he was just like looking at where he's at now and looking at where he was at then. It's just such a cool journey to look back on, and thinking about just like continuing to dig forward. And it was just really fitting where we look at this meme, this picture that circulates on the internet. We're like, man, that's been you the last 5 years. And yeah, it was really just a cool conversation to be having, and something that I know so many other athletes can benefit from as well. So many of you guys are on this journey, you're on this path, you're working towards this main goal, whether it is the UFC, whether it's, a championship in another sport, whatever else it might be. And things get hard and you stop, or, you find an excuse to take a week off, 2 weeks off, a month off that you don't need to be taking off. And every time you do that, you're pushing yourself a step backwards. Because the difference between, an athlete and this miner digging through the dirt trying to hit his jackpot is, if you stop pushing forward, not only do you not make progress towards the jackpot, you're reversing the progress. Because the longer that you are away from training, the longer you are spending time doing things outside of pushing yourself towards that goal, the worse you will get physically. Because if you don't train for a month, you guys all know at some point or another what happens when you do that. You start to gain some weight, and not the weight that you like to gain, and you lose a little bit of that explosive first step. Things go poorly when you're not training. And so if things are going poorly for you and you're not doing anything to correct that, that's like filling in the hole that you've already dug out. Now, it was super cool thinking about that journey with Mac, and then it really got me thinking about my own as well. And, when I moved to Calgary, just a couple of pieces of the puzzle. First, I was ridiculously insecure and nervous about moving to a city where I didn't know anybody, moving away from friends that I'd had for a long time, moving the furthest from my family that I'd ever been. There were a lot of pieces of the puzzle that were scary. I was just coming off of losing a job and losing a 6-year relationship. And so, just as a human being overall, I had no idea who the hell I was, what the hell I was working towards, anything. And continuing to move forward through that, and continuing to dig each and every day, continuing to, just take that one extra step forward, just allowed me to overcome so much. Because I look back from where I'm at now to where I was at when I moved here, and man, I'm an entirely different human being. And I think we get lost in that sometimes, week to week or day to day or month to month, we don't feel like there's been that much progress. So you're like, oh man, I'm not getting anywhere. I've been working at this new combo that I'm drilling in the gym for 2 weeks and I don't have it mastered yet. But then if you look back at what you were doing a year ago, you were probably working on way more basic shit if you had even started training yet. Right? So starting to zoom out and starting to look at progress as a long-term thing instead of a day-to-day thing really was just transformational for me. And, having that conversation with Mac, it really just got me thinking and understanding that we get way too caught up in the future. This year, Mac's had a little bit of trouble finding fights. Can't say I'm surprised. I don't blame anyone for not wanting to fight the guy. He's an absolute monster. But we get so focused and so caught up in the day-to-day of, I haven't fought in 4 months, so, I'm not making any progress. But if you actually look at where you were a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, you're an entirely different human being. You're an entirely different athlete. You bring an entirely different skill set to the table. And ultimately, as long as you continue to do that, as long as you continue to evolve who you are as an athlete and who you are as a person, you're controlling everything you can. You're making all the progress that you can make. And in turn, when the opportunity does come up, you're going to bring an entirely different, better version of that to the ring, to the cage, whatever it is. And when you're able to bring that entirely new version of yourself, you're going to understand what the last 6 months, 8 months, a year, whatever it is of not fighting has done for you, right? But while you're going through it, it's that much harder to continue to press forward because you don't see the end goal. You don't see the next fight. You don't have anything booked. So if you don't have anything booked, you feel like you're not progressing in your career. You're not improving. You're not, doing anything because you don't have that piece of you don't have that check mark on the record to say, I had my next fight. But if you take that mentality and then you slack and you decide, well, I don't need to do that much right now, or I don't need to push that hard, or I'll just focus on other areas of my life because I don't have anything booked right now, that's what's going to screw you over. Because when you get that next fight, the work that you've done leading up to it, or the lack thereof, is going to show when the opportunity actually presents itself. So if you're in a position where you don't have your next actual competition booked, understand that the work you do now shows up in 60 to 90 days. So if you're slacking now, if you're not continuing to dig and continuing to press forward and continuing to make improvements now, well, then 60 to 90 days from now, you're going to be exactly where the fuck you are right now. And if you're exactly where you are right now in 90 days, and then you do that cycle all over again, well, then in 180 days, you're going to be exactly where you are right now. In a year, you're going to be exactly where you are right now. In 2 years, you're going to be exactly where you are right now. Any given day, it doesn't feel like a lot. Any given day, you don't feel like you're doing that much. You don't feel like you're moving that far forward. But if you move forward every day, the wins start to stack. If the wins are stacking, then the progress starts stacking. And if the progress starts stacking, then when you actually get the opportunity to showcase it, then you're going to notice what you've been doing over the last 6 months, a year, 2 years, whatever it might be. So the big thing I want you guys to take from this as we wrap it up is look at how you're spending your time right now. Look at the times that you're taking off. Oh, I'm not gonna go to training this week because I'm just busy with some family stuff. Or, oh, I'm not gonna go to training this week because work's crazy and balancing the two is just too much. Or those excuses that you make that you use to justify not hitting the weights, you use to justify eating like shit, you use to justify skipping a week or 2 weeks of training or whatever it might be. Look at all of those and ask yourself how much you do that in your life. Ask yourself how much you do that in your life. Because if you can truly look at what you're doing right now and you can truly be honest with yourself about where you're making excuses and where you're making justifications, this is going to be the most powerful thing in the world for you. And it's going to be powerful because you're going to be able to look at your life, see the justifications and the excuses, and fix them. Get back to work. Stop allowing them. And if you can stop allowing those, then immediately you can start to transform. You can start to transform. And a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you will be unrecognizable. Because if you have big goals for your career, you can't afford to take 3 months off just because. You can't afford to chill right now because it's summer. Because if you do those things while other people are continuing to press forward, continuing to dig, continuing to drill, they're going to reach the goal line before you if you ever get there at all. So look at your life, figure out where you're allowing the justifications, the excuses, all of those things to take place, and figure out one thing you can do this week to start shifting them around. All right, that is it. That is all. I appreciate you all for tuning in. If you're here with me live, thank you for taking the time to tune in. Thank you for sticking with me this long. If you're tuning in on the replay, make sure that if you got value from the show today, that you share the show with a friend, share the show with a teammate, share the show with someone who needs to hear this message, and make sure to go write a review, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow across all social media platforms, all that good stuff. And all of you, I appreciate you tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.